Stop what you're doing. Right now, without knowing it, you are aboard the most insane roller coaster ever built, and nobody gave you a ticket. The rock beneath your feet is spinning at 1,000 miles per hour. At the same time, it is screaming around the sun at 67,000 miles an hour. The whole solar system is pinwheeling through our galaxy at nearly 500,000 miles per hour. And the galaxy itself, the entire Milky Way, is barreling through the cosmos at close to 1,000,000 miles an hour. 1,000,000 miles an hour. There is no machine humanity has ever launched that comes close to that. And you are sitting there completely unbothered, maybe sipping something warm, perfectly at ease. Your coffee is not sloshing, your hair is not blowing back, nothing is rattling, nothing is shifting. You feel with absolute certainty like you are not moving at all. How? How is that possible? That is the question we are going to pull apart today. And I want to warn you up front. The answer is not, your body just isn't sensitive enough. The answer is far stranger than that. The answer reaches into the foundations of reality and says something genuinely unsettling. The universe itself doesn't think you're moving, because in the deepest physical sense, you aren't, and neither is anything else. Let's start with your own car, because you've already run this experiment without realizing it. Imagine a perfectly engineered highway. No potholes, no ripple strips, no imperfections. The engine is silent, electrically powered, completely smooth. No wind noise because the windows are sealed. You close your eyes. Can you tell you're going 70 miles per hour? Genuinely think about it. Not the scenery rushing by, not the sound of tires. Those are clues from the outside world. Take all of those away, close your eyes, and there is nothing. You'd swear on your life that the car was parked. Here's why. Your body does not contain a speedometer. There is no cell, no nerve ending, no organ anywhere in you that measures speed. Not one. You have an astonishing suite of senses. You can detect pressure changes 1,000th the size of a pinhead. You can smell a molecule in 1,000,000. Your inner ear can sense the tiniest tilt. But speed? Absolute silence. What you can detect exquisitely is change in speed, acceleration. When the car lurches forward, you're pressed into the seat. When it brakes, you pitch toward the dashboard. When it corners, you slide sideways. Every single one of those sensations is your body detecting a change in motion. Constant motion? Nothing. Zero. Your nervous system has nothing to report. And this is not a quirk of biology. It is not an evolutionary oversight. It is a fundamental constraint woven into the laws of physics. You cannot build a machine that detects absolute speed through space. It isn't an engineering challenge, it is an impossibility. Speed has no meaning without something to measure it against. Take away the reference, and the very concept dissolves. Galileo understood this in 1632, which is remarkable because it was one of the most controversial ideas anyone had ever proposed. He described a thought experiment. Imagine you're below decks on a great ship, he said. The cabin is sealed, no windows, no view of the shore. You've got some flies hovering equally in all directions. The fish swim any which way. The drops fall straight into the vessel below. Now, says Galileo, let the ship sail, any speed you like, but steady, constant, no rocking. What changes? Nothing. Not a single thing. The flies don't drift backward. The fish don't cluster toward the stern. The drops fall exactly as they did before. Everything inside the ship behaves as if the ship had never moved. This is called the principle of relativity. No experiment performed inside a sealed, smoothly moving system can tell you whether you're moving or standing still. Motion and stillness, when the motion is steady, are physically identical. There is no difference, not a small difference, not a hard-to-measure difference, no difference at all. This shattered the dominant view at the time. Aristotle's world said the Earth sits motionless at the center of everything, and the argument for that? If the Earth were moving, we'd feel it. Birds would be swept off their branches, stones dropped from towers would land far behind the tower's base. The whole thing seemed obvious. Galileo defeated that argument with a thought experiment about butterflies on a boat. Now, you might say, fine, constant motion is undetectable, but Earth isn't moving in a straight line. It's spinning, it's orbiting. Those are curved paths, and curving means acceleration. We said we can feel acceleration, so shouldn't we feel something? You're absolutely right to push on that. Let's look at the numbers. The Earth spins once every 24 hours. At the equator, you're tracing a circle 25,000 miles around. That gives you a speed of about 1,000 miles per hour. But the centripetal acceleration, the tiny inward nudge that keeps you moving in a circle instead of flying into space, works out to roughly 0.03 meters per second squared. Gravity pulls you downward at 9.8 meters per second squared. The spin is producing an outward force that's about 1/300th of gravity. You'd need laboratory instruments to detect it. Your inner ear, which is genuinely one of the most sensitive motion detectors in nature, cannot come close. The orbital acceleration around the Sun is even smaller. Despite moving at 67,000 miles an hour, the orbit is so vast, 93 million miles to the Sun, that the centripetal acceleration of Earth's orbit works out to about 0.006 meters per second squared. That's 1,700 times weaker than gravity. For comparison, you clearly feel the acceleration of an elevator starting up. That's roughly 1 or 2 meters per second squared. The Earth's orbital acceleration is 300 times less than that. You have no chance of feeling it than you have of hearing a whisper across an ocean. Here's where it gets genuinely beautiful. Because even that tiny number, the orbital acceleration, isn't really the full story. There's something deeper going on with the orbit specifically. Think about what happens when a car corners. You feel pressed to one side because the car seat is pushing you inward and your body resists. The force acts on you from one direction. Now think about gravity. When the Earth orbits the Sun's gravity is the force doing the pulling. But gravity doesn't push from one side. Gravity reaches into every single atom of your body and pulls them all simultaneously, equally, uniformly, all at once. You and the Earth and the atmosphere and your coffee cup are all falling toward the Sun at precisely the same rate, every particle, together. When everything falls together, there's nothing to feel, no compression, no pressure differential, no one side heavier than the other. You're in free fall, and free fall is indistinguishable from weightlessness. This is why astronauts float on the International Space Station. People assume the ISS is beyond Earth's gravity, but it's not. Gravity up there is only about 10% weaker than on the surface. The difference is that the station and everything aboard are falling together around Earth. They're in free fall, and so they feel nothing. Einstein turned this observation into one of the deepest principles in physics, the equivalence principle. Being in free fall inside a gravitational field is physically identical to floating in empty space with no gravity at all. You cannot tell the difference from the inside. The happiest thought of Einstein's life, he said, was imagining a man falling from a rooftop. While falling, before the ground, the man is weightless. If he drops a ball, it floats beside him. If he pours water, it hangs in a wobbling bead. Everything falls together, and together they feel nothing. That is us, every day, orbiting the sun. People often think it's the atmosphere that saves us. The air moves with the earth, they say, so there's no wind. And there's a tiny grain of truth there. If the atmosphere weren't rotating with Earth, you'd experience a permanent 1,000-mile-per-hour wind at the equator, and that would certainly tip you off. But strip away the atmosphere entirely. Put yourself on a bare, airless rock, spinning through space. Would you feel the spin? No, you wouldn't, because the atmosphere isn't why you can't detect the motion. The atmosphere and you both fail to detect it for the exact same underlying reason, the principle of relativity. Uniform motion leaves no physical trace. Another one, we're too small to feel it, as if a larger creature would notice. An elephant in a smoothly moving train car feels exactly as much of the train's motion as the bacterium on its foot. Nothing. Scale is irrelevant. The principle doesn't care how big you are. Even though you can't feel Earth's rotation, you can watch it happen. And one man did exactly that in a Paris cathedral in 1851. Léon Foucault, a self-taught physicist who dropped out of medical school, hung a 28-kilogram brass-coated lead ball from the dome of the Pantheon on a 67-meter wire. He set it swinging, then he watched. Over the next several hours, the plane of the swing slowly rotated, about 11 degrees every hour. The pendulum hadn't changed direction. A pendulum, once set swinging, obeys Newton's first law. It maintains its plane of motion because there's no sideways force to change it. What had changed was the floor. Paris had rotated underneath the pendulum. The Earth turned, but the pendulum kept swinging in the same fixed direction through space, anchored to inertia rather than to the planet. Foucault sent out invitations that simply read, "You are invited to see the Earth turn." At the North Pole, the pendulum swing would appear to complete a full rotation in 24 hours, one day, one full spin. At the equator, no rotation at all. At intermediate latitudes, somewhere in between. The formula is clean. Rotation rate equals the Earth's rotation rate multiplied by the sine of your latitude. No telescope, no satellite, just a heavy ball on a wire. Earth's rotation also shapes every storm, every ocean current, every weather system on the planet, through something called the Coriolis effect. Air doesn't move in straight lines across the surface of a rotating Earth. In the northern hemisphere, moving air deflects to the right. In the southern hemisphere, to the left. This happens because different latitudes are moving eastward at different speeds. The equator is doing 1,000 miles per hour, while the poles are barely moving. So as air masses travel north or south, they carry their original eastward momentum into regions where the ground is moving at a different speed. This is why hurricanes spiral, why high and low pressure systems rotate, why the great ocean gyres, those colossal, slow circles of water moving heat around the globe, spin the way they do. Military snipers have to correct for it at long range. A bullet fired due north or south drifts sideways because the Earth rotates beneath it during flight. At a mile or more, that drift is measurable. Naval artillery gunners in the early 20th century factored it into every long-range shot, or they missed. The rotation you cannot feel has real, measurable, consequential effects on nearly everything that moves large distances across this planet. All of this brings us to something deeper. If you genuinely cannot tell whether you're moving or still, if no experiment, no measurement, no sensation can distinguish the two, then what does it even mean to say you're moving? The answer that took centuries to arrive at: there is no absolute meaning. Saying the Earth moves at 67,000 miles per hour is only meaningful relative to the Sun. Relative to itself, Earth is stationary. Both statements are equally valid. The universe doesn't pick a winner. This feels wrong. It feels like there must be some cosmic scoreboard, some grid against which true motion is measured. Newton believed in it. He called it absolute space. And Newton was arguably the greatest scientific mind in history. But every experiment we've ever run says he was wrong about this one thing. There is no fixed background, no preferred state of rest. There are only objects and the motions between them. The laws of physics don't care about your absolute speed. They only care about relative motion and acceleration. What Copernicus and Galileo really showed isn't that the Earth moves and the Sun doesn't. They showed that putting the Sun at the center makes the math enormously cleaner. Heliocentric coordinates replace bizarre planetary loops with elegant ellipses. It's a better map, but no map is absolute truth. There is no absolute truth about which thing is really moving. There is one frame of reference that comes closest to universal. In 1965, scientists discovered the cosmic microwave background, a faint glow of microwave radiation filling all of space in every direction. It's the leftover light from the Big Bang, stretched over 14 billion years of expansion. When we measure that radiation very precisely, it's slightly warmer in one direction of the sky and slightly cooler in the opposite direction. This tells us we're moving relative to that background at about 390 kilometers per second toward the constellation Leo. Is that our true speed through space? It's our speed relative to the most uniform physical thing we know of, the remnant energy of the early universe. It's the closest the cosmos offers to an absolute reference. But it's still a relative measurement. The universe still refuses to hand us an absolute speedometer. It only gives us one more thing to measure ourselves against. So here you are, apparently motionless, your coffee sitting still, a fly buzzing around the room without the slightest concern for the fact that it, too, is hurtling through the cosmos at staggering speed. The stillness you feel right now is not lying to you exactly. It's telling you something true. Your acceleration is nearly zero. Your rate of change of motion is tiny, and that's all your body can report. What it cannot tell you, what nothing can tell you, is your speed through the universe, because that concept, in the most fundamental sense, doesn't exist. The universe doesn't track it. The laws of physics don't reference it. It took from Aristotle to Einstein, roughly 2,000 years of the finest minds our species has produced, to establish this. Our intuition screams that motion and stillness are obviously different things. You can feel one, not the other. Surely the universe knows which is which. It doesn't. And the next time you're standing somewhere, feeling perfectly still, knowing with absolute certainty that you're not moving, remember that you're on a spinning rock, falling around a star, inside a galaxy pinwheeling through the void. The stillness is real, and it's an illusion, both at the same time. That's physics.